Today at 6, rising floodwaters cause chaos across large parts of the UK. 3 people have died and another danger to life warning has been issued for the northeast of Scotland from tonight. The wet and gusty conditions caused a plane to skid off the runway as it came into land at Leeds Bradford Airport. We'll be live with our correspondents across the country reporting on the chaos caused by Storm Babette. And our other main story, Labour says the country is crying out for change as it wins 2 by-elections in once solidly safe Conservative seats. Sir Keir Starmer celebrates in Tamworth, where a 19,000 Tory majority was overturned. In mid-Bedfordshire, it was 24,000.
People are fed up to the back teeth with 13 years of decline under this government. They want a fresh start. They want to go forward, a positive case with a changed Labour Party.
As Israeli airstrikes continue on Gaza, there's still no sign about when aid will be allowed in.
We're live in Jerusalem with 2 reports for you tonight on the ground in Gaza, and we'll be assessing how the war is affecting Israelis.
And he plays guitar. Eric Cantona reinvents himself as a musician.
Also this hour, a Palestinian restaurant in London says it's facing daily abuse with staff afraid to work amid a rise in both Islamophobic and anti-Semitic incidents.
Good evening. 3 people have been killed in the high winds and floodwaters brought by Storm Babette. And another danger to life red warning has been issued by the Met Office for the northeast of Scotland from midnight tonight. Hundreds have had to be evacuated from their homes. You can see here the areas worst affected by the heavy rainfall since midnight last night. And there's more to come, with warnings in Scotland in parts of Angus and Aberdeenshire. We'll be live with our correspondents in Derbyshire and in Yorkshire. But first, let's go to James Cook in Brechin for us now. James.
This has been an extraordinary and exceptionally difficult day, and tonight there is still a major operation underway here in Brechin and Angus involving the emergency services. There are some residents still trapped in their homes by floodwaters, including a number of elderly people. The weather forecast is not good, to say the least, even though there's a brief respite at the moment. There's even some suggestion that at some point the military might have to be called in to help. Brechin is used to flooding, but they've never seen anything like this. The town's defences were breached at 4 a.m. Residents had been warned and told to evacuate, but at least 60 families decided to stay and were trapped by the rising water. Among them was Myrie, who's lived here for 20 years.
And I heard the water in the garage of our house. And this is how close we've got to escaping in our car, which is a hybrid. But we thought for a horrible moment we were trapped in it because we couldn't get the doors open. But we feel rescued now.
This was River Street as the flooding began. And this is what it looked like just a few hours later. The South Esk River roaring into this residential neighbourhood, swamping hundreds of homes.
It was above this area here, and it was over the wall. Like, you couldn't see the wall at all.
And that's the flood defence?
And that's the flood defence, yeah. But, you know, it's not really doing its job at the moment, is it?
Were you frightened?
Yeah, I was pretty scared. I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Storm Babette has been dangerous as well as disruptive. In the Aberdeenshire village of Marykirk, police search for a man reported to have been trapped in his vehicle. Near Forfar, a 56-year-old man was killed when a falling tree hit his van. And in Glen Esk, a 57-year-old woman was swept to her death. The police advice: stay at home.
Over the next few hours and into tomorrow, we're going to see a significant amount of rainfall across all parts of the country, and I think really all drivers should be mindful about making journeys at this time, plan ahead, think about where do you need to really make that journey. In some of the areas that I've seen, exceptional amounts of rain in the last 24, 36 hours.
That includes Dundee, where Jenna and Darlene had a lucky escape.
Tried to evacuate earlier on this morning, but I nearly jammed. The current took us, and I grabbed onto somebody's windscreen.
Sorry.
Wiper, sorry, it's broken, whoever it is.
But yeah, no power, no food, no water till now.
The Scottish Government says this storm has been unprecedented. The Met Office has issued a second red rain warning for Angus and Aberdeenshire, meaning the danger to life continues tomorrow, especially here in Brechin. Well, this is River Street, and you can see the water's gone down a little bit, but there's still a big problem here. There's the bus stop. That gives you a sense of how deep the water is. The road runs along there, and these are the flood defences, that wall which was overwhelmed last night, and there are fears that it might be overwhelmed again before this is over. James Cook, BBC News, Brechin.
Well, the north and northeast of England have also been feeling the force of Babet today, as Danny Savage reports now from Knaresborough in Yorkshire.
Early this afternoon at Leeds Bradford Airport, an aircraft came off the runway whilst landing during Storm Babet. It triggered a major emergency services response. There were no reports of casualties on the TUI flight from Corfu, but this airport can be a challenging place for pilots to land during stormy weather. From the East Midlands, north and westwards, much of England has taken a battering from the weather today. Heavy rainfall has been the main problem. In Chesterfield, part of the town was flooded, leading to people having to abandon their homes.
It's destroyed everything we own. And I've not even got any contents insurance for anything in my house or anything, and my landlords won't do anything. I've had to try and get my son from school. He's luckily in the church now, safe, but it's just catastrophic.
There was nothing at all we could do. The river basically went waist deep on our road in a matter of 10 minutes, not even that.
Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service says 400 properties may be affected by the rising waters of the River Hipper. This is the main line west to Bristol and South Wales near Royal Wootton Bassett. Flooded and impassable, thousands of rail passengers have had a day of disruption on many lines. This packed service from King's Cross to Scotland was delayed by more than 4 hours. In Trowell near Nottingham, 4 people had to be rescued from deep water after they climbed onto the roof of a car. The volume of rainfall Storm Babet has created has turned small tributaries into gushing torrents. These are anxious times for people living close to watercourses, and there's hours of rain yet to come.
And that's because an amber weather warning is still in place along the spine of England from Nottingham all the way up to the Scottish borders for another 12 hours until 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. That means that the rain will continue to fall on these watersheds. This is the River Nid behind me here in Knaresborough. It's subject to a warning at the moment, so are many hundreds of other rivers. But what the latest from the Environment Agency is, they think this will probably be okay. It's those rivers further south in the North Midlands area which are likely to be worst affected over the next 24 hours or so, Reeta.
OK, Danny, many thanks. Danny Savage there. Well, as we saw, the storm's impact is also being felt further south. Liz Roberts is in Chesterfield for us this evening. Liz, how are things looking there?
Yes, well, here 60 people have been rescued from their homes. This area that I'm in started to flood at 8 o'clock this morning, and residents have told me that it was not very long at all before they were waist deep in water. Now, some of them did manage to get out straight away when they realised just how serious it was, mainly just with the clothes on their back, but not everyone managed to do that. So this afternoon, Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service have been here with their water rescue boat going up and down these streets, knocking on doors and getting people out of their homes to safety. They're now in a local church or in the local leisure centre, but as rain continues to fall here and more is expected overnight, it's unclear when those people will be able to return or if there's even more flooding to come.
Liz, thank you very much. Liz Roberts reporting there. In other news, Labour is jubilant after overturning huge majorities to win the Mid-Bedfordshire and Tamworth by-elections, with its leader Sir Keir Starmer saying the party is redrawing the political map. In Tamworth, Labour's candidate Sarah Edwards won nearly 46% of the vote, but it's the huge swing that is so striking, nearly 24% from the Conservatives to Labour. It's their first win in the Staffordshire seat since 2005. And in Mid-Bedfordshire, where Labour overturned a Conservative majority of more than 24,000, Alistair Strathern took just over 34% of the vote. And the swing from Conservative to Labour was also sizable at just over 20%. The Tories said a low turnout in both seats was part of the reason for their defeats. With his analysis of both results, here's our political editor, Chris Mason.
Jubilation and sleep deprivation has all sorts of effects on political activists, particularly Labour ones celebrating victory in a home county's village, Marston Mortain. Red placards and Labour smiles in rural Bedfordshire, of all places. Mid-Bedfordshire has been Conservative for decades and decades and decades. Listen out now for the one word Keir Starmer is rather keen on.
They are crying out for change, positive change that the Labour Party can bring them, positive change that a changed Labour Party can bring them.
The Prime Minister claimed he was the agent of change a few weeks back. Keir Starmer wants to own that label too.
Did you allow yourself a little jig around the living room when the results came in?
Well, a couple of jigs around the living room as both results came in.
Jigs and photos on a day of breezy political change. 80 miles up the road, not far from Birmingham, Tamworth in Staffordshire, where this happened in the middle of the night.
And I do hereby declare that Sarah Edwards is duly elected.
The defeated Conservative candidate didn't hang about. He bolted out a side door while the winner gave her victory speech, leaving the Prime Minister in Egypt to do the explaining.
Obviously disappointing results, and not least because our candidates Festus and Andrew work very hard, and I know they'll continue to be great local champions in their communities. It's important to remember the context. Midterm by-elections are always difficult for incumbent governments.
By late morning, Tamworth FC was hosting Labour, another partisan crowd cheering on their team in what was also another very safe Conservative seat.
People told me that it was not possible to win this seat in this by-election, and you absolutely smashed it.
Is there a niggling doubt that some of this could be down to Conservative voters simply staying at home?
No, I don't think that's right, because this is a huge swing.
Are you more confident than you've ever been about becoming Prime Minister?
I always knew that it was a huge job to get the Labour Party from where we landed in 2019 to a victory at an election in 2024. We're bang on schedule.
In 1996, the man on the left won a by-election here for Labour the year before Labour won a general election. Does their victory here again today point towards history repeating itself?
A second victory lap in just one morning for Labour. It's results like these that allow them to begin to believe they can actually win, and convinces so many Conservatives that they are doomed.
Labour are scoring rather a lot at the moment, but by-elections are still tiddlers compared to the real deal of a general election.
This was, without question, a desperate set of results for the Conservative Party. Two by-elections brought about by the psychodrama within the Tory party over the last year or so. Two former Conservative MPs standing down and walking away, and two crushing defeats. As for the Liberal Democrats, a dismal performance for them here in Staffordshire, a third place for them in Bedfordshire. They'll hope come a general election in seats where Labour are not competitive, they can be competitive against the Conservatives. As for the Conservatives, they have to hope, they have to pray things are better come a general election. For Labour, they hope and pray that after 4 general election defeats on the bounce, days like today suggests they might be able to win next time.
Thank you very much. Chris Mason there, our political editor, reporting from Tamworth. Time now to go live to Jerusalem and join Clive Myrie.
Reeta, thank you. All eyes have been on the Egyptian border in Gaza today. Would the lorries parked up at the Rafah crossing, loaded with food, water and medicines for the desperate people of the territory, finally start rolling? Well, they didn't, leaving more than 2 million people on the brink. Now, it seems Egypt and Israel still can't strike a deal to get the aid flowing, which explains the presence of the UN Secretary General, no less, at the border crossing, appealing for the trucks to roll. Antonio Guterres warned it was imperative the convoy crossed the frontier, but he added that Israel says allowing aid in was yet to be determined. So, what's the problem? Well, for nearly 2 weeks, Gaza has faced heavy bombardment from Israel since being attacked by Hamas, the group designated as a terror organization by many Western governments, including the UK, and based in Gaza. But airstrikes have left much of the north of the territory in ruins, leaving so many people needing aid. Well, tonight we have two special reports from our correspondents who live and work in Gaza. In a moment, we'll hear from Rushdie Abu Alouf, who's in the city of Khan Yunis in the south. But first, BBC Arabic's Adnan El Bursh has more from central Gaza.
This is an affluent neighborhood in central Gaza. Overnight, it's been completely destroyed. 32 tower blocks, each containing dozens of flats, are now totally gone.
They told us to evacuate at around 8:30 or 9 at night. We ran through the streets. Then Israel started bombing the area non-stop from 9 until 7 this morning. You can see all of this destruction.
Salim lived in one of these blocks of flats. She tells me all the families in her tower are now living stranded in the streets of Gaza with nowhere to go. Other residents say many people remain trapped.
We cannot bring people out from under the rubble. Ambulances cannot get here. We cannot pull the bodies out. People are screaming, but we cannot pull them out.
Last night's attack took many residents by surprise, as people told me that it has been a relatively calm area in Gaza.
We are civilians living peacefully in our homes. Why are you bombing us and ruining our lives?
As we were filming here, a new warning came in from the Israeli army, telling people to evacuate. We have now left because it's dangerous, but the reality is for many people still there. There is nowhere safe to go. Adnan El Bursh, BBC News from Central Gaza.
The very difficult situation on the ground in Gaza. Let's go live now to my colleague Rushdie Abu Alouf, who's in the southern city of Khan Yunis. And Rushdie, in the last few minutes, breaking news regarding the hostage situation.
Yeah, first night with a little hope that might be a good sign for this humanitarian corridor to reopen in Rafah crossing. The militants group Hamas said that they have released 2 American citizens who were taken hostages at that day on Saturday. And they said after the Qataris have intervened, we have decided to release them for a humanitarian reason. We understand that the Qataris, the Egyptians, many mediation have been taking place in Qatar. Many foreign countries involved in visiting Hamas in Qatar. The chairman of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, is based in Qatar and he's leading the negotiation. People here are hoping that this sign might be going to lead to the opening of the humanitarian corridor that allow 4,000 trucks of food, medicine, fuel to enter into Gaza, as Gaza is struggling to cope with the situation, to cope with the lack of difficulties that hospitals are facing. Over 2/3 of the population are displaced in the southern part of Gaza, including this city of Khan Yunis, when 1 million people are living here now.
Okay, Rushdie Abu Alouf reporting live for us. Thanks, Rushdie. Just to remind you, we're getting reports 2 of the hostages seized by Hamas have been released. And it seems we're getting confirmation from Israeli broadcasters that that has taken place. The news came through from Gaza, but it seems now that that news has been confirmed and is being confirmed by Israeli broadcasters. And as we heard Rushdie say there, that could mean the easing of the humanitarian situation and the possibility of the opening up of some kind of aid corridor to help more than 2 million people who are in dire need there. Well, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow since the Hamas attack shocked the world, leaving around 1,400 Israelis dead. Jeremy Bowen has this assessment of the far-reaching consequences of the atrocity. His report contains some distressing images.
Palestinians on the West Bank held protests when they'd finished the noon prayer, as they've done so many times in the long years of the Israeli occupation. But nothing about this is routine for either side. Almost 2 weeks into this war and thousands of lives later, the uneasy, unpleasant, but mostly predictable rhythm of the conflict has gone. This was an Israeli raid at Tulkarem on the West Bank, the other side of occupied Palestinian territory that's separated from Gaza by the Israeli state. Arrest operations like this happen often, but Palestinians said Israel used more force than usual. One Israeli soldier was killed and the arrests were accompanied by a drone strike. Among the Palestinian casualties, 13 were killed, including 5 boys. At the mortuary, Palestinian families said goodbye to the boys. Bystanders, the BBC was told, aged from 11 to 15. The pain of loss cuts across Palestinians and Israelis. In Tel Aviv, families and friends of the more than 200 people taken as hostages by Hamas on the 7th of October are holding a vigil. 20 of the missing, Israel says, are under 18. The vigil is getting bigger. More people are joining in. The photos are going up on the wall of the Defense Ministry compound. The presence of hostages in Gaza puts pressure on the generals and the politicians, as Hamas must have intended. In a small country, it draws in many families. Daily life here is on hold. The war dominates everything. Israelis are united behind their flag and their army, and in their contempt and hatred for Hamas. They are not united about their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a highly divisive figure whose opponents believe neglected their security. It's become a powerful event, highly charged for the people who see it. But it started when Avichai Brodets, in the black T-shirt, came here on his own. His wife and 3 small children were taken from a border kibbutz by Hamas.
If you're sitting on your couch now and look down at your son playing right next to you, you know what's right, you know that he's in the right place. You know, my kids have done nothing wrong. You know, we are Yuval and Ofri, which are 4.5, 8 and 10. Ofri just celebrated her birthday. She's still got cake in the fridge. So, you know, we all know what the right thing is to do, where they should be, where my wife should be. So, you know, it's pretty easy choice to make. Just, you know, bring them home to me.
Israelis and plenty of others, including President Joe Biden, say this is their equivalent of the attacks on America by Al-Qaeda on September the 11th, 2001. And for Israelis, this is not a trauma you can get used to. Every day they're learning more about these people, about the missing, about the dead. And that sadness and anger underpins the resolve of the government to hit back, to get their people, bring them home, and to destroy Hamas. And in Gaza, more funerals, many more. In a place cut off from the world, they might not have heard President Biden telling his Israeli allies not to be blinded by revenge while exercising their right of self-defense. One question is whether the Israelis, in their pain and rage, will heed his call for restraint. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Jerusalem.
The trauma of a nation. Well, the identities of more of those killed in the attack by Hamas are emerging. Lucy Manning has been speaking to two families with connections to the UK about the loss of their loved ones in the current war.
Yoni Rappaport, in the middle, a massive Man United fan. He planned to bring his son Yosefi to the little boy's first game next month. That now won't happen. Yoni, a British-Israeli father of two, murdered by Hamas.
He was so excited to be taking Yosefi with him. It's very heartbreaking now. Yoni will always be with us. He's in my heart and always will be. And I miss him. I just miss him.
Before the destruction of Kibbutz Be'eri, Yoni tended the gardens, an expert on trees and nature lover.
He was a lovely man. He was quiet. He had a most amazing smile, which just lit up the room.
The family described what they think happened. They said, a terrorist burst into the safe room and he saved his two children, telling them to hide under the bed.
They killed Yoni and they killed a lot more of my friends. We are not an army base. We are just a peaceful village. We got slaughtered because we are Jewish.
In the Midlands, Dr. Omar Hassouna is mourning multiple members of his family, who he says have been killed by Israeli strikes on Gaza.
3-4 days ago, my niece and her 3 children, as well as her husband, has been killed. 2 days ago, a further my niece again, with her husband and her baby, which is age 3 months, who's been bombarded, their house, and killed.
Dr. Hassouna says he heard that his cousin and around 40 members of the cousin's extended family had been killed.
You feel very frustrated, feel anger, see, really unfair, targeting illegitimate, target human being and civil people.
Nearly 2 weeks on from the Hamas attack, and it's Israeli and Palestinian civilians who continue to suffer. Lucy Manning, BBC News.
The continuing pain on both sides there. Well, that's it from us here. I'll be back at 10, but now it's back to you, Reeta, in the studio.
Clive, thank you very much. Now, Eric Cantona, who you'll remember from his days as Manchester United's world-class footballer. And he was also a somewhat less successful actor, but now he's reinvented himself as a singer. After teaching himself guitar during lockdown, the former Manchester United star is releasing a single. Our entertainment correspondent Colin Patterson went to meet him.
I've been a fool, I've been bright, I've been uncool.
Eric Cantona, as you've never heard him before.
You love me.
What kind of performer are you on stage?
A great performer. Of course, you know that.
James gets there just first. Cantona!
During his 6 seasons in English football, Cantona won the league 5 times and did the double twice. Fans chanted his name. Now he's the one doing the singing.
Watch yourself in the mirror.
And next week, at the age of 57, he starts his first UK tour.
Someone you love. I have a deep need of expressing myself. I was born with that, I think. So when I stopped football, I started to act.
Sometimes we forget that you're just a man.
I'm not a man. I am Cantona. And then the lockdown arrived. And then I started guitar. Hours. I'm very bad at guitar, very, very bad guitarist.
But that's what you write the songs on?
Good enough to write songs with my guitar.
What do you want to write about on this album?
I've been good, I've been bad. You hate me, you love me. I've been heroic.
I've been criminal.
The Manchester United footballer Eric Cantona has been charged with common assault on a spectator.
It was January 1995 when Cantona karate kicked a fan who was abusing him after he was sent off at Crystal Palace. Cantona was given a 2-week prison sentence, which was overturned on appeal.
Cryptically, I think you are saying that that famous moment at Crystal Palace might feature in this song.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I say. I've been Eric, I've been criminal. I go to hell, I go to heaven, but wherever I go, I make my own heaven.
Eric Cantona.
Thank you very much. C'est la vie.
Time for the weather now. So much stormy weather, Ben. Give us an update.
Rare to see a day quite as wet as this one, Reeta, across such large parts of the UK. A number of flood warnings, in fact, many flood warnings in force, and some severe flood warnings across parts of eastern Scotland. 5 severe flood warnings right now. No wonder when you look at the rain that's fallen. Eastern Scotland has had a very wet day. That rain has started to ease a little. But we've also seen huge amounts of rain across parts of the Midlands, parts of North Wales, East Anglia, up into northern England. We still have this Met Office amber warning in force to take us through the night. And then for tomorrow across eastern Scotland, another red warning from the Met Office. A further 100 millimetres of rain is possible, falling on already sodden ground. More flooding looks very likely indeed. A red warning means there is a risk to life. You can see the rain setting in again across eastern Scotland, continuing for a time in northern England, parts of Wales, still very windy up towards the northeast. Also quite a cold night actually in parts of northern Scotland, milder further south. So as we head into Saturday, low pressure still firmly in charge of the scene. Bands of rain circulating around it, quite windy to the southwest and indeed to the northeast of the UK. Outbreaks of rain really setting in across eastern and northern parts of Scotland, with that ongoing risk of further flooding and disruption. It does dry out a little bit across England and Wales, Northern Ireland too, but there'll still be some showery bits and pieces of rain, some heavy rain in the southeast corner, windy in the south and in the north, and temperatures the least of our worries, around 9 to 15 degrees. As we head into Sunday, though, the weather does look a little bit calmer. There'll still be some showers here and there, but most places should be dry with some spells of sunshine. The wind's a little bit lighter by this stage, so something a little quieter weather-wise by the end of the weekend. Reeta.
Ben, thank you very much. That's it from us. Now it's time for the news where you are. Bye-bye.